Hello there! Welcome to the Throne of Thunder Looking for Raid Guide. My name is Tuskeh, and in this video we will discuss Wing 1 of the Throne of Thunder, the last stand of the Zandalari. We'll cover everything from the trash to the bosses and how to handle them. Role-specific information will also be included. This is a 3-boss wing, and every boss has a chance to drop a Sigil of Power, a Sigil of Wisdom, or a Secrets of the Empire for your legendary questline. Now, just to clarify, this video is not a substitute for a detailed boss-specific guide. This is more of an overview, designed to get you up to speed with the bosses you'll be facing, so that you're ready to complete the wing and keep up with the others in your pug. As always, the best thing to be in an LFR is patient. People are going to ignore mechanics, and it's important that you do things right to help things run as smoothly as they can. Now, let's get started. The trash up to the first boss is only really dangerous if you pull more than 1 or 2 groups at once. You'll be fighting Zandalari trolls. The Stormcallers will do AoE damage to the raid, the Waterbinders will do raid damage, a Frostbolt on their tank, and do a long cast called Bind Water. Interrupt it to prevent lots of adds from spawning. The Spear Shapers will throw their spear at a ranged raid member, creating a pulsing AoE. Move out of it if you can. The Spear Shaper will then jump to their spear, pick it up, and whirl back to their tank. If you're hit by the whirl, you'll get knocked back. Finally, the Blade Initiates will put a stacking healing reduction debuff on their tank. Really, this trash can just be AoE down. The Zandalari Stormcaller is next. He'll do a 10-second long cast called Storm Weapon. This will double his attack speed and cause him to do lots of damage to the tank with each swing. He'll also put Storm Energy on ranged raid members, making them periodically explode for damage in an area around them. Stay away from people who have Storm Energy, and if you're the debuffed player, get away from the raid. Jinrock the Breaker is the first boss in this wing. He's a one-phase fight with a very brief intermission period. He summons no adds, and the fight revolves around standing in large pools of water he creates to heighten your damage and healing output. However, throughout the fight, Jinrock will make these pools of water dangerous to stand in, so situational awareness will help you out a lot here. First, for the tanks. Jinrock's tank switch mechanic is called Static Burst. This is a raid-wide AoE that, a couple of seconds after he casts it, will apply static wound to his tank. This is a strong dot that has the added effect of AoEing the raid whenever you get meleeed. So as soon as you see the other tank get afflicted with static wound, perform a tank swap. Jinrock will generally tend to yell "Smash" whenever he performs Static Burst, signalling that static wound will be applied a couple of seconds later. Make sure you don't taunt too early here. Additionally, Jinrock will, 4 times throughout the fight, pick up his tank and throw them at one of the 4 Mogu statues in the room. They'll hit the statue, fly to the ground, and do a 15-yard AoE stun around them. The raid can tell where the tank is going based upon the direction Jinrock is facing when he casts this spell. Once the tank lands, a pool of water will begin to form under their feet, growing larger and larger until it covers a quarter of the room. Standing in this pool of water dramatically increases your damage and healing, so make sure you jump inside it. As soon as the first pool spawns and the raid is inside, use Bloodlust. Remember that while you stand in this water, you will take extra damage from all of Jinrock's abilities. Any ability that hits someone standing in this pool will also hit everyone else standing in it, so it's important that you don't let his other abilities hit you if you're standing in the water. Tanks should never stand in this pool, as their static wound debuff won't fade if they do. Try to position Jinrock so that his back is to the pool of water, so that the melee can stand in it without being parried. Jinrock's other abilities are also quite important. He'll use Focused Lightning. This creates a lightning orb that chases a ranged raid member. This can be a healer. If you have any kind of boss mod like DBM or Bigwigs, you'll get a warning and your character will likely say something like "Focused Lightning on me." This orb will chase you very, very fast. Your job when you get targeted by it is to run away from the raid. The orb deals damage to anyone near it and does a small AoE when it hits you, and it will hit you, there is no avoiding it. You have a window of 5 to 6 seconds before it reaches you, even with movement speed increases, so get into a good position out of the way of the raid, near a wall if you can. When the Focused Lightning Orb explodes, it will leave a fissure in the ground for the rest of the fight. 2 tips here. First, never let a Focused Lightning Orb explode inside a pool of water. It will deal very high raid damage if this happens. Second, don't lead an orb that's chasing you over an existing fissure of lightning. This will also deal raid damage. As a note, whenever a pool of water goes over a lightning fissure, it will deal light damage to the raid. It will also despawn the fissure. After a minute or 2, Jinrock will enter his intermission phase. He'll jump to the middle of the room if he's not already there, face the pool of water, and begin to cast Lightning Storm. As soon as he does this, the pool of water will be compromised, and for the rest of the fight, become a pool of lightning. You should no longer stand in it, or you will take heavy nature damage. Lightning Storm will also deal heavy damage to the raid, but since he's not casting any other abilities, it's a great idea to stack at his feet with the melee, allowing the healers to use AoE healing to keep the raid alive. Once Jinrock stops using Lightning Storm, he returns to his original phase and the fight repeats itself. Move the focused lightning orbs away from the raid, never let them explode inside a pool and don't lead them over existing fissures. When he throws the tank using Thundering Throw, jump into the pool to make yourself stronger. Tanks don't go in the pool. This fight has an enrage timer of 6 minutes, as at that point the room will be covered with lightning pools and you'll wipe. As a note, if Jinrock throws the tank in a diagonal pattern throughout the fight, you'll have to run in between the two lightning pools to get to safe areas. There is room to do this by running directly in between these pools. Healers, this fight can be very bursty. The raid may take sudden damage from someone buggering up a focused lightning orb, and that on top of a pool of water and the AoE that the boss does can get people a bit low. Make sure you keep the tanks alive as priority, as you have a bit more time to heal the raid once the tanks are stabilised before another ability comes in. In Phase 2, good cooldowns will mitigate the damage from Lightning Storm. Moving on to the trash up to the second boss. This is pretty widely regarded as the most annoying trash in this wing. Although the courtyard after the corridor may seem empty, let the tanks go first. The bushes contain massive snakes that stack an undispellable poison debuff on their target. Just AoE them down. Next up are the bridges. This is fairly complex. At all times until you clear the mini-boss at the very end of this area, a windstorm will cover the bridges and constantly push your character towards certain death. If you fall, you die. The wind isn't so strong that you can't run against it, but if you just run forwards, you'll end up getting pushed off. Just note that there are small safe areas on the bridges that will protect you from the winds, but you won't generally need to use them. On top of this, large trolls called Spirit Flayers float across the bridge. They're completely unkillable, so don't bother throwing anything at them. They also can't be tanked, they just float around. Below them are blue auras that will deal damage if you stand in them. Also near the bridges are large trash mobs called Tormented Spirits. These have an absolutely gigantic aggro radius. You'll have to kill 4 to safely get across one of the 2 bridges. The only thing they do is stack a damaging spell on the raid that reduces healing taken. Pulling more than 2 at once is a death sentence for the entire raid. The best way to handle these bridges is as such. The entire raid waits on the stairs in front of the bridge, safe from the wind and the Spirit Flayers. The tanks run forwards until they aggro the Tormented Spirits. As soon as they do, they return to the raid. Once the spirits arrive, the raids kill them. Single target is best here. Repeat this for the second pair of Tormented Spirits, who are a bit further away, and then the raid can move forwards as one. Now there's a platform in between the 2 bridges that isn't affected by the wind, but does have Spirit Flayers wandering around it, so keep an eye on them. Also on this platform is a large mini-boss called a Soul-Fed Construct. He has a tank swap called Crush Armor, so swap at between 3 or 4 stacks. He also uses Spirit Fire Beam, a chain lightning-like spell that jumps between players and deals higher damage the more players it hits, so spreading out is good here. Once the Soul-Fed Construct is dead, repeat the bridge process again. Wait at the stairs for the tanks to move forwards and aggro 2 of the spirits. Kill them one at a time, then repeat. After that, charge forwards as one. Just to note, the wind here pushes you backwards as opposed to off of the bridge, so it's considerably safer than the last one. Again, in this small courtyard there are snakes, so let the tanks go first. The mini-boss here, known as Stormbringer Drazkill, is just like the Stormcaller from earlier. He'll put a lightning cloud debuff on raid members just as before, so move away from the raid to avoid AoEing people if you have the storm cloud. Now, onto Horadon, the second boss in this wing. We'll quickly go over what Horadon does himself before talking about the adds. At all times throughout the fight, he has 3 abilities. The first is Double Swipe. He'll take a couple of seconds to charge up AoE in front of and behind him. He'll swing his head and his tail backwards and forwards, dealing damage to anyone caught in front or behind him. He'll remain stationary while doing this, so just move to the side, especially if you're tanking him. The second is Charge. He'll target a random raid member and charge at them after a couple of seconds. This deals no damage by itself, but once he reaches them, he'll cast Double Swipe. So just keep an eye on where Horadon is moving and facing, and you'll be fine. If you get targeted by Charge, the best thing you can do is move towards Horadon. The less he moves, the better. If you can keep him in the same position, or even facing the same way, great. The safe areas on Horadon are his sides. Finally, Horadon will use Triple Puncture. This is the tank swap mechanic. It deals heavy damage and stacks a debuff that increases the damage the tank takes from it. With the way the fight works, it's a good idea to have one tank on Horadon, the other on the adds that spawn, and to swap roles in between every door. We'll explain this in just a little bit. This means 4 or 5 tank swaps throughout the entire fight. Try to tank Horadon near the pattern on the floor that depicts a semicircle. This will be near the door and allow the raid to hurt him while also fighting the adds. Face him with the side to the door and the raid. Now the main mechanic of this fight is adds. 4 troll tribes will help Horadon throughout the fight, coming from large doors and jumping down from the crowd. There are 3 main types of adds for each door: small adds, big adds, and dinomancers. The big adds are more dangerous than the small adds, since they have abilities that will target the raid. All big adds have some form of ground-based ability, so watching your feet is important here. The dinomancers are a specific kind of add that spawn at every door, and they are very, very important. Only 1 dinomancer will spawn per door, assuming you kill it as soon as you can. Remember, adds always take priority over the boss. Only DPS Horadon if you have nothing else to do. The first door that opens will be the Faraki door. This is to the left of the entrance. From it will come basilisks called Stone Gazers and trolls called Skirmishers. These are the small adds. The Stone Gazers will stun a target for a couple of seconds, and the Skirmishers just melee attack. Jumping down from the crowd, Faraki Waste Walkers, the big adds, are much more dangerous. These will put a dispellable debuff on raid members called Blazing Sunlight, which will deal heavy damage over time. They'll also summon sand traps, which deal damage to anyone that stands in them. These will slowly grow larger over time and will last for the entire fight. You'll get a steady stream of small adds and a total of 3 big adds, 1 near the start, then 2 simultaneously. Tanks, remember to pick these up if you're not tanking Horadon. Healers may take aggro very fast. The priority here is Waste Walkers, then Stone Gazers, then Skirmishers, then damage on Horadon. Continue doing this until a Zandalari Dinomancer drops down from the crowd. He takes absolute priority over everything else in the room. From 100% to 50%, his only ability is a channeled spell called Dino Mending. This heals Horadon, which is bad. Interrupt it as soon as you can. At 50% health, the Dinomancer will turn into a dinosaur, do more melee damage, no longer cast Dino Mending, and drop an Orb of Control. These are very important. They're interactable objects on the ground. Once a player clicks them, they'll automatically cast a spell called Control Horadon. You can move while casting this. This makes the big bastard charge at the door and break it, stopping the adds from spawning and stunning him for 10 seconds. It also despawns the orb. When Horadon hits the door, his armor will crack and he'll take an extra 50% damage for the rest of the fight. This will stack. Once the Dinomancer is dead and Horadon has charged the door, make sure you clean up any adds that are left behind. Once that's done, it's time for the whole raid to move. You'll be moving in a clockwise direction towards the next door. Tank Horadon as before with his side to the door, make sure you tank swap, and the process repeats. This time, adds from the Gurubashi tribe will spawn. There are only 2 types here. The Bloodlords are the small adds. They'll randomly charge at people and put a 6-second bleed on them. The big adds are called Venom Priests. As before, they jump down from the crowd. They have 2 abilities, both of which are very dangerous. Venom Bolt Volley, which dots the entire raid with poison that can be dispelled, and Venomous Effusion. This creates an add that casts exactly the same Venom Bolt Volley as the Venom Priest itself. Also, when the Venomous Effusion spawns, it will leave a pool on the ground that deals damage and slowly moves around the room. Don't stand in it. The Venom Priests are so horribly dangerous that you should just destroy them as soon as they spawn. Their Venom Bolt Volley and Venomous Effusion casts can both be interrupted, and they can be stunned, so keep them locked down and try to prevent them from casting anything. Again, after 3 Venom Priests spawn, the Dynamancer will jump down. It's a good idea to kill any Venom Priest remaining before the Dynamancer. Then, get him to 50%, grab the orb, kill him, Horadon charges the door, gains another 50% damage taken, you clean up the ads, and then the raid moves on. The Drukhari are next. They have 3 kinds of ads. Risen Drukhari Warriors and Champions, which are the small ads. These guys can't be tanked and leave a stacking disease debuff called Deadly Plague on their targets. Kill them as fast as you can and dispel if you can get rid of diseases. The big ads are called Drukhari Frozen Warlords. Again, there will only be 3 of them, 1 at first and then 2 at once. This ad can be tanked, and does a Mortal Strike that halves the healing the tank will take, so cooldowns are nice here. Never let them use this on the Horadon tank. They'll also place Frozen Orbs on the ground. These are small orbs that move slowly around the room and damage you if you're near them. Avoid them. Just as before, the Dynamancer will come down. It drops an orb at 50%. Pick it up, kill the Dynamancer, clean up the ads. Horadon is now on 150% extra damage taken. On to the last door. The Amani are the last tribe, and they're quite dangerous. But, before we go into the mechanics of this door, I'd just like to point something out. The DPS requirements of this fight aren't that high, especially with Siege of Orgrimmar gear increasing DPS. And once Horadon reaches 30% health, his Master will jump down and Phase 2 begins. This can and probably will happen before you reach the last door, meaning that you'll have to deal with the mechanics of this door and the mechanics of Phase 2 at the same time. But, assuming the raid focuses on Horadon and his Master, the fight will probably end before the Dynamancer from the last door spawns. For this reason, I don't have footage of the last door, but I will go over its mechanics anyway. There are 2 kinds of small ads. Protectors, who just use melee attacks, and Flame Casters. These will randomly cast fireballs at players, so stun or interrupt them if you can. The big ads are dangerous. They're called Amani Warbears. These have a swipe that means they should be tanked facing away from the raid. Once the Warbear dies, the Beast Shaman riding it will become attackable. They have a Chain Lightning which can be interrupted, and a Hex of Confusion. This is a curse that makes players hurt themselves when they cast spells. It's annoying and horrible and should be dispelled. They also place Lightning Nova totems, which are stationary totems that deal high AoE damage. As I said before, once Horadon reaches 30% health, or once the last door is destroyed, War God Jalak, Horadon's Master, will jump down and enter the fight. He's a nasty bugger, but he doesn't have that much health. The raid should focus him as quickly as they can. He should be tanked by the tank not on Horadon, and he hits quite hard. Jalak's only ability is Bestial Cry, which deals heavy raid damage and increases all damage Jalak deals by 25%. This stacks, meaning that after 5 or 6 casts he'll start one-shotting people, especially his tank, and after 7 or 8 casts it's a wipe. For this reason, pop Bloodlust and nuke him down nice and fast. After Jalak dies, Horadon will enrage, doubling his damage and attack speed. At this point, he'll also have at least a 150% damage taken increase, letting you nuke through the last 30 or so % of his health. He'll still do double swipe, triple puncture, and charge. Nuke him down before he kills you. If the tanks die, spread out and try to kill him before he kills the raid. After Horadon dies, it's onto the trash towards the next boss. These trash packs aren't too nasty, but there are some annoying casts that can screw you over. The Berserkers will turn into a big brute at 50% health, but otherwise aren't that dangerous. The Flame Casters do raid damage, the Frost Wardens put down a Glacial Freeze totem that stuns everyone nearby after a cast, so kill it or get out of its range. The Sand Conjurers create a veritable tidal wave of ads the second you aggro them, so make sure you pick them up. The Sand Conjurers will also cast Sand Bolts for damage and something called Choking Sands, which is essentially a stun, but it can be dispelled. All ads here can be stunned, CC'd, and interrupted. Just AoE them down. After the second group, a spirit will appear, yell at you, and then summon ads from the corpses of the trash. These Shadowed Voodoo spirits just cast Shadow Bolts, so AoE them down. They aren't that dangerous. Repeat this until you reach the end of the corridor. From here on, the spirit won't summon any more ads. In the next room, 2 Zandalari ads will stand. They look scary, but really their spells aren't that dangerous. Just kill them, stun them, and interrupt them if you can. The next group is a bugger, and comes with a High Priest, a Frost Warden, a Sand Conjurer, and a Flame Caster. They're all spread out, channeling into a Warlord. The Warlord does a big shockwave, so face him away from the raid. The casters will stay at range and be annoying, so Death Grip them, or CC them before you're ready to kill them. As before, the next 2 trolls are really easy, keep them interrupted and kill them. Next, the pathway branches into 2 different directions, towards the last boss of this wing. There are 2 patrols here. You need to kill them both, as they both go very close to the boss room and can aggro during the fight, which is bad. Just keep the Zandalari interrupted and stun them if you want, and AoE them down. Now, onto the last boss of this wing, the Council of Elders. This fight consists of 4 bosses who do not share health. You'll need to whittle their health down at roughly the same speed, or a mechanic called Dark Power will start to screw with the raid. Let me explain. A 5th troll, called Garajal the Spirit Binder, will jump into the bodies of one of the council. This empowers them, making them cast extra abilities and making them generate energy. Once their energy reaches 100, they'll start to AoE the raid. This AoE at first doesn't hurt, but it doubles in strength each time it ticks, and it ticks fast. So, 10,000 becomes 20,000, becomes 40,000, becomes 80,000, becomes 120,000, becomes 240,000, becomes a wipe. To stop the generation of energy, the raid must remove 25% of the empowered troll's health. But if there are no other trolls alive for the spirit to jump to, it won't leave the empowered troll. You can see now why you want to take their health down at approximately the same rate. If you leave one at 80% and kill the others, the empowered troll will still generate energy even if you take off 50% of his health. There is one exception to this, and we'll get into it in just a moment. For now, let's go over the 4 bosses. The 4 bosses representing the different troll tribes here are Sul the Sandcrawler, Khazra Jin, Frost King Malak, and High Priestess Ma Li. Sul, Malak, and Ma Li can all be tanked. Khazra Jin cannot be tanked. Sul and Ma Li prefer to cast spells rather than melee attack, so moving them can be hard even with interrupts. Malak requires a tank switch. It's best to have 1 tank on Sul, 1 on Ma Li, and allow Malak to swap between the tanks. Sul the Sandcrawler is by far the most dangerous of this lot if he gets empowered. As such, the raid will want to put the melee on him permanently until he dies. The ranged can go on whichever troll is empowered. Sul will always get empowered last in the rotation, allowing you to kill him before the spirit even touches him. He'll use Sandbolt for damage on his tank and place pools of quicksand underneath players that deal damage and put a stacking slow on them. If this stack reaches 5, the player will become entrapped and becomes rooted. This root is magical and dispellable. As a note, when Sul creates a pool of quicksand, the player he targets with it will instantly become entrapped, so quick dispels are important here. If he ever becomes empowered, Sul will cast Sandstorm. This deals raid damage and turns all quicksand pools, there will be a lot of them at that point, into living sand ads. These need to be tanked and AoE down before another Sandstorm, because if another Sandstorm is cast while a living sand ad is alive, it will heal to full and double its damage. This also stacks. So kill Sul first if you're melee, that way he won't ever be able to cast this bloody spell. Khazra Jin, thankfully, is much more simple. All he'll do is target a player and roll at them. Before he does this, a line of lightning appears on the ground to indicate where he's going. When he reaches his destination, he'll do a small AoE around him. Anyone caught in his charge or in the AoE at the end of it will be knocked up briefly. If Khazra Jin is empowered, when he finishes casting a charge, he'll overload and be stunned for 20 seconds. While he's stunned, he'll reflect 25% of the damage done to him back to the players. This doesn't hurt that much, but healers be wary that the raid will take damage while they're focusing Khazra Jin. Don't let this reflect stop you from DPSing, it's important that you do. Malak has 2 main abilities. The first is Frigid Assault, and this is the tank switch mechanic. For about 20 or 30 seconds, Malak's successful attacks on the tank will deal extra frost damage and stack a debuff called Frigid Assault. If this stack ever reaches 15, the tank will be stunned for 15 seconds. This is obviously very bad. Any abilities that you can use as a tank to avoid rather than mitigate the damage will be helpful. Since he hits very fast, tank swapping at about 10 to 12 stacks should give you enough time to swap before a tank is stunned. It's not the end of the world if a tank does get stunned, but as I said before, it's bad. Malak's other abilities change depending on whether he's empowered or not. If he's not empowered, it's called Biting Cold. This targets a random raid member and makes them do an AoE around them for 30 seconds. Just move away from the raid to avoid doing damage to them. If he's empowered, he'll cast Frostbite. This is very similar to Biting Cold, but it comes with a stack of 5. For each stack, the player takes a lot of extra damage. If another player is near them and taking the damage from the AoE, the stacks are reduced by 4. So if you have this Frostbite spell on you, move near another ranged raid member to split the damage nicely. Having more than one extra player in the AoE is pointless since the stacks can't go below 1. Finally, High Priestess Marley has 2 abilities that change depending on whether or not she's empowered. She uses Wrath of the Lower, which is just a nuke for holy damage on the tank if she's not empowered. When she's empowered, this converts to shadow damage and hurts a little bit more. Her main mechanic is quite important. She'll summon a lower spirit. This is an add that will move towards someone. If she's not empowered, this blessed lower spirit will move towards a boss. This add has little health and will heal the boss for 5% of its health if it reaches them. It can be slowed, knocked back, rooted and stunned, but if it remains alive for 20 seconds, it will immediately jump to its target and heal them. So as soon as you see it, nuke it down. Roots, stuns and knockbacks are great. Just as a note, if the bosses are together, the heal will go off instantly, but it's not that big of a deal. You can generally DPS through it. If Marley is empowered, the spirit becomes a shadowed lower spirit. This is much more dangerous. This will target a ranged raid member and move towards them, much like the blessed lower spirit, but in reverse. If this shadowed lower spirit reaches the raid member, it instantly kills them. If it's alive for 20 seconds, it'll jump to them and they're dead. Roots, slows, stuns, knockbacks, kill it very fast. If it's chasing you, run. Soul creates Quicksand, dispel the debuff it creates. If he's empowered, he summons adds. AoE them down fast and make sure you tank them. Khazrajin rolls around, avoid his rolls. If he's empowered, he'll stun himself and do raid damage via reflex. Healers keep people alive through it, DPSers don't let it stop you. Malak has a tank switch that stuns at 15 stacks, so taunt at about 10 to 12 to stop the stun. You'll probably have to repeat this a couple of times until his buff fades. He'll make someone a bomb, so move away from the raid if it's you. When he's empowered, the bomb will need to be shared with another player. You can use cooldowns to survive it too. Marley summons spirits. Kill them as fast as you can. Use roots, stuns and knockbacks. The order of the possessions tends to be Malak, Marley, Khazrajin and then Soul. Melee, stay on Soul until he's dead regardless of the empower. Then swap to focusing on the empowered troll. Ranged, you want to always target the empowered boss. Remember to keep their health, aside from Soul, fairly similar, to avoid getting killed by dark power near the end of the fight. One final note. The more times a troll is empowered, the faster he gains energy and the more damage he deals. This doesn't tend to be a problem, but just keep it in mind. You want their health to be similar, but not to the point where the spirit jumps instantly between one and another. The empowered troll should always be 25% lower than the others, except for Soul, of course, who you should just nuke. DPSers, you can multi-dot in this fight for great results. Healers, the damage can be a bit bursty if people stand in stuff, but otherwise this isn't too hectic of a fight. Tanks, swap on Malak, keep your boss interrupted and you'll be fine. Once the council is dead, you've completed the wing. Congratulations on your success. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you have any thoughts, make sure to leave a comment below and like or dislike the video. I'm always after feedback, so let me know what you think. You can contact me using the links in the description, or you can just leave a comment. Make sure you subscribe to catch my videos as soon as they come out. Thank you very much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck with your loot in the Throne of Thunder.